The Portland Trail Blazers are a team that most people are probably looking at right now and would say that they have another year or two to rebuild. When I look at them, due to the fact that they are in the Western Conference, I would say that's an accurate statement to make. Sure, there's a lot of talent currently on this Portland Trail Blazers roster, but they're going to have to be a lot of step ups this season. There's going to have to be a lot of development and a lot of stuff to figure out. However, let me make this very clear. The Portland Trail Blazers are also a team that when I identify and look at right now, I see them as a team in which has a shot to be ultra competitive in the future. I'm going to start off with the very top of this team right now because there's a guy in Portland who was drafted last year, number 3 pick in the draft. And I see way too much hate, in my opinion, online about him. And I get it. A lot of people like to be funny and go make comments and jokes about certain players and whatnot. But let me just say something about this. Scoot Henderson was one of the youngest players in the entire NBA last season. He was thrusted into a rotational role where Scoot Henderson was thrusted into a team where originally Damian Lillard was expected to be the guy and supposed to learn from Damian Lillard. The entire preseason leading up to the season and all was heavily emphasized on Damian Lillard, the trade speculation, all that. And there wasn't a lot of time to easily develop him getting ready for what his actual role would have been heading into his rookie season in the NBA. And then the season comes along, and no, it was not the dream season overall that people would have loved to see from him, especially when you compare it to the likes of what Victor Wembanyama and you talk about what Brandon Miller and so on and so forth did last season. But that does not mean that I'm any lower on Scoot Henderson than I was a year ago. Scoot Henderson still has a chance, and I believe will be a franchise point guard in the NBA. He's still an ultra young player, but having a full offseason of development this season, and now allowing himself to step into a role where, he is pretty much the guy now. He's going to have to be one of the premier guys. The starting spot should be his for the entire season. And everybody knows, hey, this is your team. Let's go play. He has all the potential in the world. He's ultra athletic. We saw a lot of flashes, especially in the second half of last season. And I'd be shocked if we don't see that come to fruition this year. So when people address the Portland Trail Blazers, they address them as if there's a team that has no star on this team. Well, let me say this. I think that Scoot Henderson has a chance to be that guy. I think that Scoot Henderson is going to be a very, very good player this season. I think he's going to take a jump and start to solidify himself, and people will realize, okay, he was a number 3 pick for a reason. We're going to be good. They've got a star on this team now. But let me not just say that, because a lot of people that aren't familiar with casuals per se in the NBA forget about Anthony Simons. He's a guy that you might recall from the dunk contest and whatnot. Simons is a guy that's extremely talented, and I think is a potential borderline all-star even this season. I understand it might be tough to make it because the West is stacked with talent this season, and also when you look at the Portland Trail Blazers, the success might not be very good this year, but Anthony Simons is a very, very talented player. And then you head over to an acquisition this season, this offseason that I'm very, very high on. And Deni Avdija. A lot of people were unfamiliar with his game. We saw some decent moments in Washington, but Washington's a mess, let's just be honest. And Chauncey Billups made a statement that he might be the best player on this team. Might be a little bit of a stretch right there, let me say that. But Deni Avdija has a chance to have a massive breakout season this year. I think he's a much better fit. I think his play style fits alongside this team a lot better. And I like what he's going to bring to this team. I think he will solidify himself a part of this young core. And then you get to the forwards in the center spot. Jeremy Grant, we know what he's capable of bringing to this team. And then you have DeAndre Ayton, both of which are solid players and obviously guys that are competitive guys that you're going to have and a lot more stability, I'd say there. You know what you're getting in both of those guys. Good players, veteran players at this point in their careers. Overall, it's a solid group right there. So starting 5, when you look at it, to be honest, is not very bad. Now, when you compare it to the rest of the Western Conference, obviously there's a little bit more differences in that regard. But the starting 5 is not too bad. Here's what I want to address, though. We've got news that once again, Shaedon Sharpe got hurt. There was going to be a lot of questions to who the starting 5 was between the 5 guys I just said we were going to start, and then also having Shaedon Sharpe involved. The answer has now been solved because Sharpe's going to be out for a little while again. And that stinks. Because when I talk about Shaedon Sharpe, you're looking at a guy that I am super high on. His athleticism is incredible, yes, but his skill set is very, very high as well. And I think when we look at Shaedon Sharpe, he has a chance, I thought, to form a great young core group between Scoot, Simons, and himself. That's going to have to wait for a little bit longer. And will he ever be 100% healthy? I don't know the answer to that. However, at this point in time, and the way it's shaping out, is that likely the starting 5 is going to be locked in there to commit to that 5 for a little bit. Whenever Sharpe gets back, here's what I'm intrigued to see. Will he be able to get back to 100%? Can he stay healthy and durable? And does he emerge and become an elite 6-man for this team this year? It'd be interesting because if you allow him the opportunity to say, hey, Offense is yours. You're with the second unit. Do what you want and develop this year. And then we can truly see Flash of what he's truly capable of if he can stay healthy. I'm intrigued to see what that could possibly look to and lead to. But I also want to address this part now. The biggest, maybe weirdest situation for Portland right now is at center. You have three guys that you could consider starting caliber guys in the NBA, or at the very bare minimum, at least rotational guys on any team in the NBA at the center spot. DeAndre Ayton, you have your top pick in Donovan Clingan this year coming in, and then you have Robert Williams, who also was hurt for a little bit now. Once again, unfortunately, I believe it's only going to be for 2 weeks, so he should be back by opening day. The biggest thing for them is figuring out who they're going to go around, because you just drafted Clingan, and is he going to get the chance to start? And if so, when is that going to be? Or is he even good enough yet? So you obviously have a year or so to determine that, but who is going to be your guys that's going to be playing? Because any one of those three guys not being in rotation is going to look weird, especially on a team that's not very, very talented. So I could see a potential swap of trades there going on, because you have another guy that's at center on this roster as well, and do have Reith. So you have guys that could be a 3-unit guys at center. Wouldn't be a massive issue if you trade one of those guys. That's what I'm intrigued to see. DeAndre Ayton probably has the most value. Robert Williams probably has a lot of value. Obviously, Clingan has the most value, but I'm saying that you're not going to trade him. So you're looking at DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, two guys I could see get traded. Be interesting to see what they do there. Then you have at the forward spot, Jabari Walker, Kamara, and Chris Murray. I'm really intrigued to see what Jabari Walker does again. I think he's a guy that's really solidified himself a part of this young core as well. A great rebounding machine, great locker room guy, plays high energy. He's the type of guy that I see having a long 10 or so year NBA career. I like what he brings to this team. I think he's going to be staying there. Kamara, I like him a lot as well. Finding ways to get both of the guys to stay in the rotation is what I think Portland needs to do, because I think both of the guys are more than worthy of being in this team and should be a part of this core. Chris Murray, haven't seen enough for me to be sold on him yet. Obviously, he's a solid young player as well, though, but he should be able to get more minutes this season. Then you have Matisse Thybulle, one of the premier defensive players in the entire NBA, a great wing. We know he lacks offensively a little bit, but I do like what he brings to the team as well. He's a guy that can be a solid player on this roster. Then you have Rain Rupert. He's also a guy that's a young player. Should get more minutes to develop this season as well. Here's a guy that I'm a little bit intrigued on, though. The last guy that's on a guaranteed contract right now, Donald Banton. We saw lots of flashes last season. I don't think that's something we can count on for him to be a star or so, like he was almost playing at some portions of the season. But I do think that Banton has a chance to be a really good backup. And right now, he's the only backup point guard on the roster, so he's going to have to get minutes behind Scoot to start the season at least. I'm intrigued to see what he can bring to this roster. He's a big guard. I like his game a lot. I think he could be a guy that emerges as a true core piece of the Portland Trail Blazers. Your two-way contract is locked up between Taze Moore, Justin Minaya, Bryce McGowens. I like the Bryce McGowens one a lot. I think he has a lot of potential. Would be interesting to see how he pans out. Minaya was on a standard contract last season. He's now going back on a two-way. Taze Moore, he was on a 10-day last season. I like what he brings to the table as well. So what do I think about the Portland Trail Blazers overall? Here's what my guess would be. When you look at this team, they did improve. The Portland Trail Blazers got better this year. However, the West is very, very talented, and I don't think they're going to be able to compete with the rest of the West. That's not all that bad, though, because if Scoot takes a jump, I'm pretty confident he will take. Simons continues to develop, and you have all these guys emerge. You're able to trade some of these veteran guys off and get more assets and acquire more pieces, young guys, whatever the case may be. You're heading into the offseason in which you have and be in a position to possibly draft another superstar. This upcoming draft is no last year's draft. Let me make that clear. This upcoming draft has a chance to land you a generational player, but for those that don't recognize it, Cooper Flagg is great. There's a lot of other great players too. And so even if you don't get number one, you have a chance at landing a great cornerstone piece to your team. And so if I'm the Portland Trail Blazers, it's all right. Maybe this season is not the most successful year once again. But in my opinion, what I think of this team is that if healthy and guys take the jump I think they're capable of taking, they might only be one star away from being a team that has a solidified, great young core that then just has to develop chemistry and develop together to eventually take the next jump to being a legitimate threat in the NBA. And so that's obviously 2 or 3 years down the road. It's a little bit of a timeline there. But if I'm the Portland Trail Blazers, fans don't need to be too upset. Yes, it might be another rough season, but look at this season as a year of developing young guys, establishing the core, seeing what you have and you don't have, and then preparing for what needs to be a massive offseason next season. You have a chance to land that top guy in the draft, and you possibly have a chance, because the other aspect I will say, I do think Chauncey Billups is on the hot seat. Not fully sold on him as a head coach yet. And this might not be the best roster in the world, but I haven't seen much development overall. Maybe he's the guy, maybe not. But if you head into next season with a new coach, possibly, the new young guy coming in, and the core established, then you have a season of really saying, okay, can we reach that 30, 35 win mark? and develop chemistry together and then be prepared to go take a massive jump that following season. That's what I'm looking at for the Portland Trailblazers. That's what I think they have the capabilities of doing, and they should do this season. The only thing I want to add to this roster is they do have a guy on a non-guaranteed deal in Devontae Graham, a veteran guy that's been in the league for a long time, was a solid player for San Antonio last season, second half of the year. And they have 15 guys, so he kind of is set up where he's not going to be able to make the team unless other maneuvers happen here. But that's where I'm not too shocked at. Do you package a couple of these guys up when you have a lot of extra depth to maybe open up a roster spot for a trade, whatever the case may be, and you bring in then Devontae Graham? Possible. Obviously, as of right now, he's going to be the odd man out, but that's something to keep an eye on for sure. It will be interesting to see what these guys all have here. But as I said, I like this team overall. Lots of young guys, missing still another superstar, but I do think that fans need to be hopeful and embrace the young guys. Don't be too hard on Scoot Henderson. He's going to be fine this year. I think he's going to take a massive jump. We already know what Simon's going to do. I think it could possibly have an all-star jump. And this other guys will come into fruition. The main thing I'm going to look at, can Sharp stay healthy? Can Clingan, what is he capable of doing? Because if you get all these guys coming together and you can head into next season with Denny Avdia, you have Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, you have Shannon Sharp, Clingan all locked in, and you add in a top guy, that's going to be a very, very good day for the Portland Trailblazers. So that's what Portland Trailblazers fans should be looking forward to for this upcoming season.